Today on Food News and Chews, Chef Jeremy and Sylvia find out what all the buzz is about with local honey from State Apiarist Dr. Tammy Horn and local beekeeper Richard Hosey. Then Chef Jeremy makes a flatbread pizza with sausage, beer cheese, and honey. That's what's coming up on Food News and Chews. Food News and Chews is brought to you by these proud sponsors. Alltech, helping farmers feed the world. Azure Restaurant and Patio, worldly influenced, locally inspired. Sullivan University, offering higher education for people with higher goals. Azure Catering, catering the most important events, yours. Critchfield Meats, fresh, high-quality, all-natural meats, guaranteed.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yep.
We have gone the full arc of our careers. We've been educators. Now we are dastardly filthy thieves. We've cased the joint and we're gonna rob the bees.
You know, Sylvia, I don't think that's how it works when you're talking about extracting honey from bees.
Well,
I don't think they're going to pay attention to that.
My grandfather always said you robbed the bees.
That's true. So we are extracting honey today from bees, and it's just the right time. The flowers are out, it's hot, and
yeah, supposedly they like that.
They apparently love it.
Excuse me while I put this in my holster. I'll use it some other way. Sure. Okay, great. Hey, let's buzz a little bit about bees then. You know, we're extracting honey today, as you said, and all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, the really cool thing is people are really starting to pay attention to bees. And that's really for a very good reason.
Yeah, the whole beepocalypse thing right now.
Beepocalypse, don't you love
it's a disease or a dilemma people are calling colony collapse disorder. And apparently, you know, the worker bees go out and get the job done, but they're having issues with, you know, the queens dying and the hives falling apart.
Yeah, and they find the workers dead.
Nobody really knows exactly what's going on, but there are.
Well, here's some stats.
Yeah.
Commercial beekeepers are losing 28 to 30% of their hives. Now, normally you do lose hives.
Sure.
Normal is what, 10 to 15%. That was in a magazine article a while back.
Right. So can you imagine losing 10 to 15% of anything at any given time?
Yeah.
But now it's more like, what, 30%?
Yeah,
more,
20
maybe
to 30.
Of your hives are collapsing. And think about that, life without fruits and vegetables, because what is the stats they say about food and how much is actually traced back to bees?
40% or something like that. It's pretty amazing.
Of our food supply is traced back to bees. So.
And worse than that, there would be no pecan pie. There would be no coffee.
Right.
I mean, we're talking serious stuff now.
Right. So these pollinators, so to speak, are responsible for about $25 billion worth of our food every year. And now we're in trouble because they're dying off without really any...
And bees are about 15 billion of that. Yeah.
15 billion.
Of that 20. I don't know what other pollinators are, but bees are about 15 million of that.
So what's causing this?
Well, they think it's well, there's many theories. And one of those is pesticides. And it's a group of pesticides, and I'm going to use the short name for it, neonics. Neonics.
Neonics? Neonics or something?
Hey, there you go. Neonics. Neonics. I don't know. Anyway, they're bad. Well, okay, let's say this. They are good things in that they keep certain plants alive. It's just like the trade-offs, like GMOs and stuff. So you got these pesticides that keep other things. But you imagine that a little bee comes buzzing along and lands on a plant.
Sure.
And eats that neonic, whatever that tonic is.
The bad poison.
The bad poison. And there are a lot of people, and in fact in Europe they've banned it. But then in Europe they do a whole lot more different things with environmental regulation.
Yeah, it's one of those products that maybe hasn't been thought through fully. If you think about it, okay, pesticides are to kill pests, which are bugs that you know maybe
to help us have our food supply.
Useful. You know, there's lots of ways to control pests with other types of planting and different flowers and things like that. But this one, in particular, for a bee, it doesn't exactly just kill the bee, but it doesn't make it just like drunk. and then it can't find its way
back to the hive, and they think that's another theory.
Right.
Now, big companies are getting involved in this.
And the White House.
Yeah. What's the White House doing? What are they doing about this?
Well,
and you know, they got everything else in the world, and what are they doing about bees? Because it is a big deal.
They're doing whatever they can, which is boycotting certain products. Big companies are boycotting products.
Yeah, like Home Depot.
Right. You know, the White House is putting money into it.
Now, Home Depot, just to be clear, Home Depot is asking for more study to be done.
Sure.
And there are companies that are actually banning or requiring labeling so that they knew if these neo-whatevers. It sounds like a political statement.
And the White House is putting the money into the study. They're putting together teams, for research and trying to get the ball started. Okay, what are we going to do about this dilemma that could really cause some issues? So this type of, or this class of pesticide stays out there, we could see some really, really big serious issues. I mean, it's a lot of untouched places, but is there other things other than pesticides that's causing it?
Yeah, actually there are, and we should say that because there are many, many theories. In Europe, they tend to see environmental regulation as guilty until proven innocent.
Sure.
We over here do it differently. USDA has yet to ban anything, but some of the other ideas are stress. Some of the stress, the bees suffer just exactly what we do. But industrialization, you have to ship these hives across the country in the commercial marketplace.
Well,
that would cause me stress to be in the back of a 18-wheeler in a little hive.
It's actually a huge, huge business, especially for areas of the southeastern United States or even California. There's people that just raise colonies and they pack them up and they ship them all over the world.
It's a commercial business. Again, it's sort of like the whole idea of local.
Right.
There is local honey and all of that, and we're going to talk to a couple people today and know a lot about that. Viruses are an issue.
Yeah, there's I've read a lot of things about specific viruses that attack bees. None of this has been proved either way. We don't know what the issue is, but that's what we're going to explore today.
Yeah.
And figure out.
How about this one? Genetic diversity. And that's the same thing, more monolithic bees, and they don't, in this commercialization of bees.
So you're just saying inbreeding, right? Just like the bees are so inbred they can't
I know, they
find
need to
their way
marry
back
outside
to
their
the hive.
clan, out of their tribe, and all of that.
Oh,
I'm very interested to learn today more about the queen and the workers and how they're all related and all of that stuff.
Yeah, we got a couple of experts I can't wait to talk to, because other things could be other insects as well attacking the bees. I've read articles about mites or bugs that could cause these issues anyway, but we got to find out from somebody who knows what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, so we're going to go in, folks. We are going to go into, and my gun is ready, but Jeremy says that's not true. I can't do that. So, Jeremy, what do you say? Let's go to the hives.
Let's get some honey.
All right, let's go get some honey, honey. Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
We're here with the queen bee, the Kentucky Apiarist.
That was
Apiarist. I mean, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Apiarist, right?
Yeah, appointed by, it's a neat thing though, it sounds cool. It's with the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, an appointment, and it is a very prestigious one, particularly right now, Jeremy, with all the noise out there about bees.
There's plenty of noise, plenty of buzz about bees. That should be the thing. But yeah, Tammy Horn is a legend. I've actually had the privilege of knowing her for a while and following her work, but it's been a good move by the Kentucky Department of Agriculture to hire her. And it's an interesting job. This is the first apiarist that Kentucky's ever had, or is this a new position for you?
No, I'm fortunate. I'm stepping into two roles that have been defined by other apiarists. Sean Burgess just retired in April, and Phil Kraft had that position for 12 years. And so the roles that I will be doing are inspection, because we care about the health of bees in our state, and so I like to inspect hives as they're coming in and going out of the state. And then education and extension, that's a big part of what the state apiarist does. And then marketing, setting up those relationships between honey producers and potential outlets.
Wow, what fun.
And stores and restaurants.
That doesn't sound like a job, that sounds like fun.
It has been a delight. I have absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So I got to go back to the first inspection. Now, we don't think of bees being a big economy in Kentucky, or maybe even honey, but does it mean that you're actually checking out hives they come in and out of the state or being shipped?
Yeah, tell us about that industry. I mean, there's a lot of that going on. Why?
Absolutely, because it's been very difficult this spring for beekeepers in other states to find people who are selling bees. And so they're coming to Kentucky to buy our bees. And
do we have a lot of them?
We do have a lot of very good beekeepers who make what's called nooks, and they're selling those nooks to people in Alabama and Ohio and Mississippi and Indiana, and And we want to make sure, the state, Kentucky Department of Ag wants to make sure that when those bees leave the state that there's a clean bill of health.
Yeah, a nook is several hives maybe?
It is several frames in one hive.
Ooh,
it's
interesting.
It's the nucleus of a hive, and so we call it nook for short. And it's 5 frames typically with a feeder, and with a good queen. And so we have actually seen a lot of out-of-state people come into our state to buy bees. And so, and as I said, according to Kentucky Department of Ag statutes, you know, we have a responsibility to make sure that
fascinating
those
business.
bees are healthy.
Explain the life of a hive just real quickly.
Okay.
What does it do, and how often do you take the honey?
So first of all, the hive never hibernates like we generally think of it in the wintertime, like a bear. It's always active, and it's always consuming honey and pollen. And pollen is the trigger in the spring, like when people see dandelions and things, that pollen is a trigger for the queen to start laying. And as soon as temperatures get above 55, 60, and there's more sunlight and there's more pollen, the queen will start laying. And then by now, you know, through the spring, she's laying a lot of eggs and larvae and workers, and they are bringing in pollen and nectar, the 2 fundamental things that the colony has to have. And the honey is the carbohydrates, the pollen is their protein. And then what we are doing this time of year is celebrating any extra nectar that the bees have brought in to make honey. And we're taking that.
Stealing it.
How do you know it's extra?
Well,
that you got their bellies full?
Because in Kentucky, generally a hive needs about 40 to 60 pounds of honey to make it through the wintertime.
Okay.
So when the beekeeper is working those hives, you know, you do have a sense of how much honey each frame will make. So that's how we lay it.
Hey, Jeremy, we're here today with Mr. Bee, Mr. Honey. He is Richard Hosey, and it's Hosey's Kentucky Honey as his product.
I've had having his honey before.
Oh, I know. And you're out of Midway.
Yes, ma'am.
And you distribute to a lot of local businesses for sale.
We do.
Of your honey.
Yes, we do.
Cool. Totally awesome. Let's talk to Mr. Hosey.
So I've always wanted to know, is this a career you stumbled into, something you've always wanted to do, or how did this happen?
Well, I knew nothing about beekeeping growing up.
Okay.
And it's a long story, but the short version is I had an older brother, have an older brother that had a health food store in Bloomington, Indiana. Couldn't get enough raw honey. There's a lot of other honey on the market, but he couldn't get enough honey that he thought was just like the bees made it, not been cooked or had anything added to it.
Yeah.
He came to me. I was just graduated from high school, and my father, 1974, and said, let's start a bee business. So
that had to be early on in the, because now bees are so popular, but.
Well, there weren't a lot of there weren't, it wasn't as popular as it is today.
Right. You were a pioneer.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
I definitely have to ask this because, you know, you produce a fine quality honey, the real thing. But, you know, along the markets, I've heard, you know, shipments coming in from China or other places that aren't even really honey, right? It's bottled as honey, but what is that stuff?
Well, there's been a lot of things in the news as of late about some packers who have actually been fined and for putting corn syrup in their honey, one. And there's some other things that are similar to honey, which are hard to detect. One of them's rice syrup. And so...
a lot of unscrupulous kind of things.
If it doesn't say 100% pure on the label, you should maybe scratch your head a little bit about that product.
Or maybe you should buy local, so you know what you're getting, right?
You go.
From Hosey's.
Yeah,
so many reasons to do
just like the bees behind you.
Yeah.
They're making local honey. This is a beehive. A beehive is actually a house for bees. Inside these wooden boxes, we have a colony of bees with about 50 to 60,000 bees in it. In the bigger boxes at the bottom is called the brood nest, the brood chambers. And down in here we have the queen bee and the eggs and brood that come from her eggs. And down here there's a whole cycle of life going on where bees are being born and raised and growing into adults. As the season starts, sometime in February, and bees start bringing in nectar, most of that is used to feed the young bees as the hive is growing the bees. Then as the season goes along and the bees are raised and more nectar keeps coming in, the bees are bringing in more than they consume, and they decide or start to store it. Normally bees store honey above the brood nest. So box 1, box 2, brood nest. Box 1, 2, 3, 4 are for honey storage. In the course of a good honey season, the bees can fill up all 4 of these boxes and sometimes more than that. And then other seasons, sometimes they don't fill up any of them, and that's considered to be not a good season. So first we're going to do a little smoke in here, which we've already calmed these bees down a couple of times. With I did a drench on them, it's called, with honey and water, chamomile tea, and lemon grass oil in it. One of the main attitudes that you want to have when you're working with bees is you want to be as calm and peaceful as you can while working in a beehive. Bees are very sensitive to pheromones, and if you are excited or putting out a lot of fear or anxiety, etc., the bees do pick up on that. This is obviously a frame of honey. This frame of honey started out 6 weeks ago as just a frame with beeswax foundation in it. And in 6 weeks' time, they drew the beeswax out and made combs, filled it full of honey, and now it's capped over. And all we're going to do, there's a few different ways to do this, but this is one of the easier, simpler methods, and you just take your brush and gently sweep the bees off. And you can see they fly right back into their house. And you can't do this in all kinds of weather. I would advise you never do this on a rainy day, because bees are not real happy on rainy days. And there you go. You have a frame of beautiful honey. If you're a beekeeper that's got 3 or 4 hives, you take this back to your honey house, and you take a serrated knife, and you would just cut from here down through under the cappings here. And when you do that and you get down to the bottom, you'll have just honey in the comb, and you do that on both sides. And then there's a device called an extractor, which works on centrifugal force, and it works just like the spin cycle on your washing machine. And you set that in an extractor, and they've got 2 frame, 4 frame. The biggest ones I've ever seen are 72 frame extractors. But anyways, it spins, and as it spins, the honey gets thrown out of the wax, and it runs down the sides of the extractor, and then it goes out. And from there, you can strain it and run it into bottles.
Hey, Jeremy, let's go back and make some honey pizza.
That's right, we'll take the fruits of our labor. Special thanks to backyard beekeeper Rob Mudd, Tammy Horn, Richard Hosey. Thank you very, very much for this education. I can't wait to get this back into our Kentucky
And we didn't get
pizza.
stung. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, Jeremy,
Yes.
You know that makeup works pretty well for all those bee stings.
Oh man, that's what all the buzz is about. I really enjoyed our time with Tammy and also Mr. Hosey.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but
that was great, but what are we going to do here today?
I brought back some honey from the hive.
Well, thank you, honey.
And I thought we would do a little pizza. Who doesn't like pizza, right?
Yeah, but honey?
Well, honey is really a great food for yeast, you know, because it's just kind of almost pure sugar, right? So whenever we make a dough, which I'm going to give you guys a recipe at foodnewsandchews.com, we can actually put yeast and flour and a little salt and water and some honey into a dough, and of course the yeast eats it and, you know, proofs the dough, as you can see.
So yeast are like people; they like sugar, huh?
Exactly like people.
Like me, anyway.
Right. So if you notice, this is a nice springy dough. It's risen for about an hour, and I like this dough, the recipe I'm going to give you, because it doesn't take too long to proof. What I mean by proofing is it's rise.
But it's a yeasty dough.
Right. Yes, it does have a little bit of yeast in it. It does rise. So we're going to go ahead and show you guys how to roll a pizza.
What kind of flour do you use for that?
Well, this is a double O flour, or Caputo flour. It's an Italian flour, and I prefer it for pizza because of its gluten content. Its protein levels, basically.
Oh, it has gluten.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Okay.
So this is not a gluten-free recipe.
There you go.
But what I like to start out when I'm doing pizza is to kind of indent.
That's the trick.
Yeah, make a little indentation with your thumbs around. And for some reason, just gives a little spring to the crust.
I always wondered how you made them get bigger.
Right, that's right. So indentation down there, and then usually I can kind of roll with my hands like that.
Yeah.
And I always resort to a rolling pin. A lot of people can throw it up in the air and do all that. You know, back when I was in high school, I worked at a pizza place.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I could do that, but I'm always just too messy anyway, so I just kind of play it safe. But flip and alternate your rolling. And the type of pizza we're going to make is almost a Neapolitan style. Now, it's not a true one from Naples, from Italy. So there's some rules behind that. One is you can't use honey, but I like the little kind of
mix it up.
flavor it gives, and I can still roll this out nice and thin and get the same effect with the dough. But a true Neapolitan
Did you have to let this
pizza.
rise?
Yeah, but the reason I like this dough, like we were saying, is it only takes about an hour.
Okay.
And then you're ready to go. But it takes a very hot oven.
Oh, and we have a special oven we're going to do this in, too.
Yeah, we're using a wood-fired oven at the restaurant that really gets some heat to it. And this pizza is going to cook in about 90 seconds. And what I love about it is it's got lots of good Kentucky ingredients.
Oh, I know.
And
like
I finish it with honey, yeah. This is our Kentucky pizza. And we actually do serve it. You can build
muscles doing this.
Well, we're trying to get it nice and thin, but not too big. You know, a little pizza like this should be eaten by, you know, maybe one person or just a share to start. And, you know, I kind of like it rustic, not perfectly shaped. You know, it's kind of like a little round pile here. You can stretch it a little bit with your hands.
Well, how come it always breaks in the middle on me?
That's just the technique. We taught when you're doing baking and stuff with your hands like this, we call it like you know, velvet glove and iron fist. It's kind of like a way to treat your dough.
Talent. Okay, now what do we have here?
So this is Kentucky beer cheese. We make this at the restaurant, but you can buy some if you want. There's so many brands of beer cheese, right?
Everywhere. What's this one have in it, though?
Mostly cayenne pepper, beer, garlic, cheese, and mayonnaise just kind of whipped together. You know, beer cheese is so easy. Everyone's got their own little recipes. Some use hot sauce, some Worcestershire, different spices. We keep it pretty simple because we just want a nice creamy cheese. So I'm not even going to try to spread around. The pizza is going to be the oven's going to be so hot.
It's
going to melt on itself. So we'll just kind of get it started.
All right.
Now, I love on this pizza Italian sausage. This is a pre-cooked one. It is a local sausage. There's no reason not to buy local sausages. All those value-added products, like sausage and ground things, they're really not even more expensive even when you do buy local, as one complaint is for some people about buying local food. These value-added products are not, so buy local when it comes to ground meat.
Okay, that sounds great.
Fresh corn.
You know, corn is really popular as one of the add-on items, about like bacon these days.
Right, you know, it gives a little sweet pop plate.
It does.
You know, for pizza.
And it's plentiful.
It is. And I'm going to use fresh basil.
Okay.
So altogether, Italian sausage, corn, beer cheese, and fresh basil.
And then finally.
Well, actually, we're going to wait till this comes out of the oven to put the honey on it. Just because I don't want it to burn in that, you know, hot oven. So just a nice little drizzle gives it a sweet finish.
Okay.
So we're going to use as our handy pizza peel to get underneath that dough. We'll sprinkle the top. Make sure it's very liberally coated on there.
And tell us about wood-fired. What is that? It cooks fast.
Oh, it's going to cook fast, about 900 degrees. The floor of the oven being about 700, 750. So if you imagine this dough is just going to go like that, we're going to have this pizza out in 90 seconds.
Yeah, which makes everything kind of meld together. Okay.
That's right. We'll make sure it's nice and loose. We can get it off the peel. So let's go to the oven and watch this one cook.
right. Ooh, gosh, this looks good.
So
you know what?
that was a pretty quick process, right? I mean, it's a hot
That's
oven.
like 90 seconds.
You know, I've still got flour on my hands that went so quick from the process. So anyway, how could that look better? You know, bubbly beer,
well,
cheese,
I know how
corn.
It can look better.
Yeah,
With
like
a little.
with honey on it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it
Oh,
first.
you cut it first, okay.
We'll keep those pieces big. I love the. Yeah, I know it's got a good crust on the bottom.
Uh-huh.
You actually see the bottom. That's what you're looking for, is a little black kind of leoparding there.
Ooh, that
around the
looks
edges
delicious.
too. It's got a good crust. So we'll put that on the plate, and then drizzle it with lots of good local honey. I just love the spicy beer
As
cheese.
much as you want, right?
Versus the honey. Great contrast.
Sweet.
Fresh
that is
basil. Good corn. Don't burn the roof of your mouth. I mean, I know it's impossible not to do, right? Everybody burns the roof of their mouth, but let's give it a try.
All right. Oops, let me see here. It is hot, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got a great bite of honey. Wow, this is good. Hey, but Jeremy, you know what? I barely have an oven at home, but I do have an oven. I certainly don't have one of those dudes.
There are a few ways you can do this at home, because you know, pizza sacred does take high heat. You can buy a pizza stone if you want to and spend some money, or go to like the hardware store and get a quarry tile. You know, like a large stone, and just put that in the oven, 500 degrees, and just let it get hot. Let it bake in there for a while. Then treat it just like I did. If you have a fancy peel, that's fine, or maybe use a cutting board and just slide it into your home oven on the pizza stone. Okay.
And it gets it nice and crisp like this.
Yeah, that's what it is. The preheated bottom, the floor. Make sure that crust gets that leoparding. See, can you hear that?
Oh man,
that's
taste it too.
You know, you get the crunch from the.
All right, well, so that takes care of the oven.
Right.
Now, tell us again, we can get this recipe. You can get any toppings you want, but...
I'm going to give you my dough recipe at www.foodnewsandchews.com. Feel free to use whatever toppings you like, but the cooking process is what's unique about this kind of pizza, the stone. But also, it's a great combination. Beer, cheese, and honey, go for it.
No way you can miss, and corn. We'll see you next. We're going to eat our pizza. We'll see you next time on Food News and Chews.
Food News and Chews is brought to you by these proud sponsors: Alltech, helping farmers feed the world; Azure Restaurant and Patio, worldly influenced, locally inspired; Sullivan University, offering higher education for people with higher goals; Azure Catering, catering the most important events, yours; Critchfield Meats, fresh, high-quality, all-natural meats, guaranteed. If you would like a DVD copy of this episode of Food News and Chews, visit foodnewsandchews.com or email us at info@foodnewsandchews.com.